By the way, public service announcement. Rocket the Emotional Support Hairball wanted to let everybody know if you're going to imbibe here on New Year's Eve, get a designated driver. Do the right thing. Ain't that right, buddy? He's cuter than shit. Hey, y'all. Everybody's favorite bumpkin here. Hey, check it out. We're back at the ride factory. Reason being is needed a little bit of space where I could spread out a little bit and do what I'm doing here. And, a lot of y'all may be asking, well, what the hell are we doing here? Well, I'm going to tell you about it. As of this recording, this is the Sunday before Christmas. And obviously, everybody's schedules is in a tizzy right now. Wow, I never say that word in conversation. Yeah, I don't know. It popped in there. Being how Christmas lands in the middle of the work week for us, we're going to be open on Monday, which by the time this video comes out, hopefully we're out the door and back at the house. However, we're doing that way we can type a couple of loose ends from 2025 and kind of shoo it on out the door, if you will. Because, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I ain't going to be sad to see 2025 go. There's been a lot of fun, but then again, there's been a lot of bullshit involved in it too. So let's just put that behind us, shall we? Yeah. I got a free day on my hands, and, Project Destiny here, she's been writing letters to Santa right and left because, she got the moves, but she just ain't got the legs, and she feels like doing a little dancing. So that's what we're working on today. We're going to give Destiny some new legs. Now, all joking aside here, what I'm going to be showing you guys is this is how you guys, if you have an older Harley touring model, be it Road King, Electra Glide, Tour Glide, whatever the case may be, I want to show you guys how you can update your suspension and your brakes on the front end to where you can actually get good stopping power and, it doesn't feel like it's rattling your teeth out every time you hit a big-ass pothole. This is going to be one of those low cash operations. We're not throwing big sponsor money. We're not throwing blingy billet parts on it because remember on Destiny, the main goal is to keep this bike looking exactly the way it did when it was made in 1988. So that's what we're going to do. However, what they don't see won't hurt you. And that's what we're doing is we're keeping all this shit sneaky. I'm going to show you guys how to do it, all right? Now, you guys have seen me build forks and stuff like that before, so we're not really going to cover a whole hell of a lot of that in the video. But when it gets down to the part where, oh, hey, look, we're being graced by our emotional support fuzzball. Everybody meet Rocket. He's the cornerstone of the ride factory here. Anyway, what I was getting at, when we get down to the part where we're kind of straying from the norm, if you will, as far as putting this thing together, I want to make sure that we roll the video back a little bit. That way I can show you guys what we're changing and explain to you why we're changing it, how we're changing it, and also what benefit you're going to get from it, and give you guys the information on where to find these parts. Now, I want to make absolutely clear here. This is something anybody can do from a DIY standpoint, okay? There's going to be exactly one part on this. Well, 1.5 parts on it. Let's put it that way. But there's very minimal fabrication involved here, okay? There's one little tiny step where you got to have access to a machine shop or somebody that knows what they're doing. But other than that, this is going to be straight up bolt on. You can buy this stuff off eBay. You can get it from a swap meet. Just arm yourself with the knowledge of what parts and what part numbers that you need. That way you get the right stuff the first time. That way you can put together a pile and you can put it all together without having to sit there and scratch your head and go, oh shit, what the hell are we going to do now? Because I'm good at that, y'all. That's why I'm here. I take the head scratching out of the equation for you guys, or at least I try. Anyway, let's get after it. All right, gang, like I said, as far as the tear down and getting down to the blood and guts of it, I'm not going to make you guys sit and watch through all that. So I'm going to kick the video on the time lapse, and while I'm at it, I'm going to crank some tunes here in the shop. That way I kind of get in the right headspace for what I'm doing here. Well, y'all know me. Y'all know the wife unit. Some of the stuff that we read and listen to on audiobooks or music or something like that, YouTube might not approve of that. So, yeah, it's better that way. Yeah, it may seem childish, but you got to protect your paint. I'm pulling the dash out of Destiny right now to where we can get the fork legs out of there. Everybody, meet Slothy. Slothy's our shop pad here. Well, that scared the poop out of me. That, and you right there. Yeah. Shit ain't easy to come by. You got to take care of it. Now that Slothy's done his job, get him out of the way here. Okay. Everybody's got baggage. Everybody's got history. Destiny here ain't no different, okay? I mean, she's got some things in her past life that she would just rather not share. We're going to touch on that here in just a little bit. Hang on, guys. I'm going to take you for a little trip here. Whee! Okay. You see all those damn blue scotch locks in there? No! 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 Do not do that. That's wrong. That's for boat trailer wiring, nothing else. We don't use that shit on motorcycles. One more thing I got to fix. Oh, yeah, speaking of things I got to fix, check this out. Didn't know this motorcycle came with its own built-in turkey call, but here we are. Kind of wondered what had been raising hell for the past few days.
Alright guys, here's this time-lapse video. I ain't ever done one of these before, so bear with me, okay? But anyway, I am somewhat spoiled to the effect that I've got several lifts at the shop that are available to me. However, this is something that can be done in the driveway of your own home or in your own garage with just a simple pancake jack. You can see where I've got my jack up underneath the front of the motor there. And make sure that it's stable and make sure you got the bike properly secured because you don't want to wear this thing for a hat, okay? I mean, after all, it's flirting with 900 pounds here. It's not exactly a lightweight, and it's not something that you want to be bench pressing off top of yourself. Now, I spent a lot of time getting those stupid fender tabs out of there, and generally I replace those with just a conventional lock washer. Those little fold-over tabs, they don't hold up any longer in a paper shirt in a bear fight. But after you do that, go ahead and pull the brake calipers off and pull the hoses off and just let the system free bleed to where you can go ahead and get all your brake fluid out because I'm willing to bet that you guys are probably overdue for changing and flushing your brake fluid anyway. I had to do it on this bike, so hey, why not go ahead and get it out of the way and get it over and done with while we're there. Now, underneath the speedometer cluster on these things, there's a whole hell of a lot of wires and connectors and things like that that just seem bound and determined to get in the middle of your way. And that's where I spent a whole hell of a lot of my time here having to navigate around all that stuff because the fork lock on the earlier model touring bikes like this is absolutely miserable if you've ever got to disconnect that thing and remove it from the top triple tree where it interacts and it locks up the forks. Yeah, no fun there. So that's where I spent a whole lot of my time was just moving everything around to where I could get the forks out of the bike and also get the air ride manifold off the tops of the fork caps. Now keep in mind, these things have got a copper washer on each side of the banjo bolts just like a brake caliper bolt does. So make sure that you put those things back in there whenever you put them back together, okay? That way your air ride actually works and it's not going to have a leak. Finish at this point right here, it took me approximately about an hour and a half to get the forks off of the bike to where I could start breaking them open to do the repair work on
it. Okay. You guys hung out with me this whole damn time. You know how much bullshit it is to get the forks out of one of these early to mid-'80s model touring bikes. There's a lot of shit going on underneath that speedometer cluster. A lot of shit you got to work around, too. Especially in my case where I'm having to go back and deal with some extra add-ons that somebody put in this thing once upon a time way back when, and also deal with a little bit of electrical fuckery that I'm really not quite sure why they decided was going to be a good idea. Anyway, got the forks off this thing, and although I am painfully out of a celebratory juice box to have on hand, a cold Pepsi will subside. Let me get the bench set up to where I can break these forks down. Let's see just how nasty some 40-year-old forks are on the inside. Because remember, I got the service records on this bike from like day one. And I've been through all that, and nowhere in there can I find that the forks have ever been serviced on this thing. So this is probably going to be gross. Yeah.
Well, right about here is where I had to delete out a big chunk of the video, because once I got inside these forks, I found so much butchery, fuckery, and stuff that was just flat out wrong, I would have wore my censor button out clipping that part of the video up. So, in the meantime, here's a distressed unicorn. You guys use that for however you feel you need to.
There we go. Good old drill bit saves the day. That screw has become Bluetooth now. Go away. You are unwanted. Oh, all over my boots. Shit. All right, at this point, we can set our original lowers aside because we're not going to be using these lowers when we go back together with the front end on Destiny. Hang on a second, I'll show you why. Ooh. Ooh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Kind of like what I suspected there. Somebody's using the forbidden sriracha on these. Yeah. Take a close look here. See that red shit on the threads? Yeah, red Loctite. Don't ever do that. Like ever, at all, ever. So by me finding that just adds a piece to the puzzle here, because apparently I didn't get all of the service records on this bike. Now, that dampener rod bolt, both damper rod bolts as a matter of fact, both of these things have got red Loctite on them, and I got to heat the dampener rods up to where I can pull what's left of the stub out of them. This was probably done by some dealer tech somewhere, because these things have got clear silicone smeared all over them, just like the factory tells you to do. That's another pet gripe of mine. There's a copper washer on that damn dampener rod bolt for a reason. That's your seal, okay? The silicone, it ain't doing a damn thing. Don't put that shit there. Yeah, see what I mean? Satan Sriracha, red Loctite on that dampener rod bolt. Don't do it. And another thing that I noticed that was strange and unusual, but it also explains a pretty healthy clunk whenever, you know, I would accelerate rather fast, or whenever the bike would rebound from a bump. Check this out. Dampener rod from the forks. You got your little top out spring here. Notice I said top out spring, singular. There's supposed to be one per side. One side was missing. So what's that tell us? Somebody fucked up. Luckily for me, I tend to be a collector of parts and pieces that may be useful in the future. So I just happen to have these here. Moral of the story is, kids, sometimes it pays to be a pack rat. All right, kids, we got all of our fork parts broke down. We got them cleaned up. We got all the goo out of here. Got all of our new parts laid out and rounded up, and also I found that missing top-out spring that goes to the dampener rod. No, I didn't find it on the floor. I found it in my junk box, because you know what? I tend to rat hole stuff like that, because you never know when shit like this is going to pop up. I'd still love to know how some idiot managed to leave that thing out of these things. This is what we're changing here, okay? Now, these are takeoff fork legs from any 2000 up to 2007 model touring model. Street glide, road glide, whatever the case may be, okay? Now, the reason we're using these is because the brake caliper mount spacing is different than on the old single piston calipers, because these are the ones that had Harley's first factory 4-piston caliper. Yeah, y'all know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that never really worked all that great. Well, fun little coinky-dink. The bolt hole spacing on these lower fork legs is identical to the 08 and up model touring models that use the good Brembo calipers that actually stop and work. Here's what we're doing. We're reassembling our original tubes with new seals, slider bushes, all that stuff, but we're using the late model style fork legs. That way we can use those Brembo monoblock calipers. That way not only can we bring the suspension on this thing back into the 20th century and get away from the horse and buggy days, we can actually put some stoppers on this thing that's actually going to stop with some authority instead of a, oh, well, we'll think about it mindset. Because the original single piston calipers on Destiny here, they were definitely a four-finger affair. Like, ugh. Trust me, going through downtown traffic, especially nuts to butts, gridlock, after a while, man, you start getting arm pump on your right arm, which you normally don't get. Point to note here. Y'all remember how I had to drill out them damper rod bolts? Well, they ain't nothing fancy. There ain't nothing special about them. These are a standard M8 by 125 pitch socket head bolt. Now, these that I'm putting back in here, yeah, they're stainless. Big deal. These don't torque all that tight, but the thing is, the original damper rod bolts, the heads are slightly shorter, and where they're taking that length off of it, it's here on the head of the bolt itself. That socket for your Allen wrench, it's shorter than what it normally is. That's why they strip out all the time, especially when some chuckle fuck puts red Loctite on them. No, I ain't butthurt about that. I will use a little bit of Teflon pipe dope on these, not tape, dope. The torque from the fastener being tightened is more than adequate to lock it in place and prevent it from working loose. This is sealing our threads to prevent oil from wicking down around the threads and past our copper washer, which provides our seal. Okay, let's see here. Damper rod, top out spring, drop that little guy in there. Give it a little jiggle shake to get it towards the bottom. Yep, right like that right there. Don't forget your bottoming cone, because you're going to hate life if you got to pull this damn thing back apart when you see this little sumbitch laying on your damn workbench after you get the fork seals put in. Now, if you look, these are just a slip fit on here. Slip back and forth all day long. Thing is, I don't use any kind of sealant or adhesive or grease or anything like that on them. Just hold the fork horizontal. They won't fall off. You know what? I want to look at something real fast. Okay. Caught myself second guessing myself. You go there, you go there. You go right like that. Yeah. That was close, y'all. See right there? Got the head of her bolt. That's a normal bolt. Thing is, it's really close to being proud of our saddle here in the bottom of the fork. It clears, but this is something that you need to pay attention to if you've ever got to replace these. Make sure it's not going to land on top of the axle, because that's going to create a hell of a spacing problem for you. Just because I'm mildly paranoid, I'm going to take this over to the lathe, and I'm going to take a little bit off the top side there, just in case. There, abbreviated. And rinse, lather, and repeat for the other side. Actually, you know what? Now, before I untune this damper rod inside the fork where nobody can see, this guy. Yeah. Y'all seen these? Y'all probably know them as the gold valve cartridge emulators that Racetech Suspension makes, and I have used them for years and years. Racetech makes an amazing product, and they do an unbelievably good job of transforming a plain Jane normal damper rod fork into something that very closely, not exactly, but very closely mimics the behavior of a very well put together cartridge fork. Now, I'm not going to dive into the differences between the two setups right here, right now, because that is a whole nother video onto its own. However, a slight trip to the Racetech website is an excellent source of educational information, and also kind of give you a little bit of a better understanding of how their product works. Suffice it to say, what these are is these are a secondary valving assembly. Now, if you notice that spring on the top, what that does is that controls the preload of this top portion of this valve. Now, these are actually two pieces. If you look real close, focus, Yeah, you can see that parting line on it right there, right below the notches. This valve is two-piece. And what this does, this has a stack of shim washers on the inside with a very weak spring in there. The way these sit inside your forks, they sit on top of the damper rod like so, and what they do is, instead of the oil control being solely controlled by these holes that are drilled into the damper rod for fork damping action, the holes are mostly overridden in the dampener rod by the valve here, because it has a spring-loaded large orifice valve here in the bottom that controls fluid flow at high speed. That's whenever you hit a big, pothole or a square edge bump, something like that. But this load spring here on the top, that's where the magic happens. Because if you look, see that little bitty hole right there in that top plate? That hole is what controls your damping at slower fork movements. Basically, when you're going down the road, just riding in normal mode, if you will. And what it does is it keeps the front end from diving on braking, and it slows down the fork action to where the fork feels a lot more responsive and a lot more firm, but at the same time, it keeps it from being harsh. Now, these are not Racetech Gold valves. These are from Ted's V-Twin. Yeah, looky there, guys. Now, the biggest reason why I got these from Ted's V-Twin is because suggested retail price on the gold valves from Racetech, they usually come to the table for anywhere from $200 to $250 per pair. And I can say this, they are worth it. However, for a lot of us, that's a pretty big pill to swallow. Now, these right here, a pair of these guys, $60 from V-Twin Enterprises, okay? Now, I ain't gonna lie. These are a straight up copy of the technology from Racetech. It's a straight up copy of their design. These are not manufactured by Racetech, and I am not endorsed or supported or sponsored by Ted's V-Twin. But y'all know me. I'm on the lookout for a buy. I'm always on the lookout for a bargain. And I think I may have found one here. But the thing is, I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig before I start really pushing these things out to my customers and things like that. I want to know, are they going to be as good? Are they going to perform the same? Is the value going to be there? Time will tell, but we're going to find out. Sorry about that, gang. Had to pause for a second and make a slight modification to our fork valve here. Hashtag not a Racetech Gold valve. See that little aluminum ring that I put on there? Yeah. I needed a spacer because these have to set flush with the top of the dampener rod. Now, Destiny has the old style dampener rods in her that are flat top. They don't have a cup to them. The reason this has to set flush on there is when that is sitting on top of the damper rod like so, the fork spring sits on top, and that's what holds it in place. So I had to make a very thin adapter ring here that presses in place on our valve body. That way it would allow it to set flush, because had I not done that, these would have the potential to rock and roll back and forth as the bike is going over bumps. Yeah, no bueno, don't need that. So now that I got my spacers made, I can go ahead and finish assembling this one fork leg. That way we can get down to the good shit of putting this stuff in here. There's that, there's that. That goes on like so, that goes there. And then we do the whole wham bam, thank you ma'am. I'm going to take our new slider bushing, drop that in there, along with a new backup washer, because they come in the kit and they're pretty and shiny and stuff. Drop that there, and then take our fork seal driver. There. Bushing's in place. A little bit of spray slick, never hurt nobody. Okay, semi-pro bumpkin tip here. When you guys are pounding the fork seal in the top of the fork leg, don't beat straight on the seal with your fork driver. Take one of your old backup washers and drop that down on top of the fork seal. Let your driver beat on that thing. That way you don't compromise your seal and chew it up. And that's all it takes. And we put our retainer ring in. That retainer ring is made weird. Oh, I see what it is. Check it out. Probably kind of hard to see. They didn't bend the tips of that retainer ring down far enough, so it's catching on the end of it and holding the ring out of the groove. You got to pay attention to shit like that, guys. Sometimes aftermarket parts, they just are a little bit off. There we go. A lot more better. All right, unpopular opinion here, guys. On the factory touring models, when they go up on the bike and the cowbell slides over them, you see them just like this right here. Now, the thing is, if you look down inside that fork right in here, that's your fork seal. It's just naked. The only thing covering it and keeping the outside world off of it is the cowbell on the bottom of the lower triple tree. Now, the majority of the fork seal kits that are out there on the market for 41 millimeter forks, they're going to come with this dust seal. This is for use on soft tail models, things like that. Harley does not put a dust wiper seal on these things from the factory, and they don't say anything about installing one. Now, I know a lot of shops, they're like, well, it's got a cowbell, that covers it. Hey, great, cool. Here's the thing. Road funk, rainwater, whatever gets blown up by the pressure washer or by the hose at your local car wash or any number of things, critters, bugs, whatever, they can get up in that gap, and it can still lead to water sitting and pooling on top of this fork seal. And what happens is two things. The water's trapped and it's sitting there, especially if you got a bike that's put away for, the wintertime or something like that. And worse, it rusts that retainer ring that we just put in on top of the fork seal. So as that thing rusts, you've got all this nasty, gritty shit sitting right there in close proximity to your fork tube and your fork seal. Either way, that's a recipe to kill one. Take your dust wiper. Put it on. Boink. There, it's installed. Now, put it on the bike. And yes, they do press in that easily with just the pressure of your thumbs. You don't have to use a seal driver on these, but that little guy right there and an extra 10 seconds of your life goes a long way towards keeping your fork seals healthy and happy. Because obviously, I don't want to do this job again anytime soon on my personal bike. My bike, well, you know what? Whenever you're working on your own stuff, it just seems like it takes that much longer. Go figure. And there we go, kids. Late model 4-piston Brembo calipers, 11.8-inch rotors, late model fork lowers with hashtag not gold valves from Race Tech, all put together on the front end. Hang on just a second. I'll show you how I did it. Actually, before I blow all this apart, I figured it'd be a good idea to give you guys some close-up shots to see how everything fits in place. Like I said, late model Brembo 4-pot calipers, 11.8-inch rotors. In this case, the rotors that I found, these are off of a 2010 model Dyna Fat Bob, hence the floating buttons. But, any 11.8-inch rotor for a 08 and up bike that uses the small 5-hole pattern, they'll all work because they don't have any offset, nothing like that. There's no funky spacing on the calipers. There's no funky spacing on the rotors, nothing like that. It all bolts up. Same story over here. Caliper, rotor, lower fork sliders. Yeah, I still got to put the front fender back on here, but I wanted to leave it off there. That way I could show you guys this stuff a little bit easier. Now, the thing is, I told you there's two things on here where you got to do some very minor machining on this. If you notice, I've still got the front axle from the old style front end on there. Give me just a second where I can pop this apart real quick and I'll show you what I did there. Here's how all this goes together. Now, the thing is, some of this is specific to the pre-91 model bikes that had actually pre-95 model bikes that had a mechanically driven speedometer, because the speedometer drive reads off the front wheel. What, Booster? Booster's saying, feed me. Don't buy into it. He's got food. He's about that big around. The kicker is you got to keep the speedometer drive on the front wheel. Okay, no problem. Here's how we do it. That is the original front axle from my Tour Glide. However, there's a couple of key things here that I had to do to make this front end work. Now, originally the head of this axle is that big around. Now you can see I've installed a sleeve right here. This is cut to 1.125 inches on the outside diameter, and I don't remember what the ID of it is. I think it was 920, whatever. I've got my notes written down over there, but it's irrelevant at this point because the sleeve is there. This sleeve was cut to be a press fit onto the head of the original axle. I got it locked in with a little bit of liquid hate, the green Loctite. Yeah, ain't going nowhere. Now the thing is, look close here. Oh, earthquake. No, it's just me and my big damn feet. If you look close here, right here, right there, you can see I've still got the step maintained from the original axle. And this is what butts up against the wheel spacer, because remember, we've got tapered wheel bearings in this bike. Everything has to stack up, and everything has to load those wheel bearings to center the wheel up in the forks, and also to support the bearings. So the reason why I had to make this sleeve is the late model fork legs have a larger diameter because those bikes use either 25 millimeter or 1 inch diameter wheel bearings. The older bikes like this, they use 3/4 of an inch. On both of the modifications I did on this axle, neither one of these are anything that's load bearing or structural. It's simply there just to center the axle and hold it centered. That way it can be torqued properly. Now on the other end of the axle, right here on the threaded end, I had to make a small sleeve that's 0.660 on the inside diameter. Again, press fit with some green Loctite to lock it in place. The outside diameter of this, right here where the sleeve is, this is turned down to 0.748. The reason why, that's not just some arbitrary number. The reason why is the hole in the bottom of the fork leg on the late model forks is bang on 0.750 inches. Well, the thing is, that's the diameter of our wheel bearings. That's the diameter of the original axle itself. The original axle, and also late model axles for that matter, here out, they step down. They have a slight step cut in them to where they are smaller than 3/4 of an inch. That way they can be a sliding slip fit into the bottom of the fork leg, but still maintain axle alignment. Watch this. See? It's a nice sliding fit, but it ain't got much wiggle to it. The thing is, I had to do this to where I could center the wheel in the forks, and also to where I could be able to still load the wheel bearings up and maintain proper bearing preload. Now, the axle is part of the equation, not all of it. But, especially if you have an older bike that has a cable-driven speedometer on the front, these are things that are going to come into play. Hang on, guys. I got to get you in close for this one. You're going to want to see it. Okay, so there's our speedometer drive inside of our new late model rotor that was never intended to have a cable drive speedo on it. Now let me point out a few things here. If you look really, really, really close, right there, in between the bore of the rotor and the snoot of the wheel right here, notice how we got that little spacer? Here, let me show you what that is. These adapter rings come with virtually any aftermarket 11.8 inch rotor that you buy these days. Now the thing is, they come in two flavors. They come as a solid like this, and they come with a notch in them. You don't want the notch because you're going to create your own in this instance. Now if you look real close, you can see where my Dremel tool kind of got a, focus. Okay, that's better. If you look close, you can see where my Dremel tool kind of got away from me just a little bit. But I had to make that notch slightly outboard of where the lip of that spacer rides. Now, instead of cutting the back side of the rotor with a pocket that accepts this flange here on this hub adapter, what I did is I took this down I took that flange, that outer lip down until it was barely 15, 20 thousandths of an inch larger than the hole that this slips into. Because these rotors have a chamfer from the factory on the back side of them. So what I did is I would carve a couple of thousandths of an inch off of it, and then I would test fit it to see how it was going to drop into the wheel, or into the rotor rather. Once I got where I could take that spacer and lay it into the bore of the rotor, and then lay a straight edge across the surface here, and it not be proud of the face of our rotor body here, that's when I stopped. Because truthfully, the only thing that this is here for is to center the rotor on the hub of the wheel at the time of installation. Now granted, you don't want it to be able to fall out, but predominantly that is its only job, is to be able to center the rotor on the hub here. After the bolts are torqued, that lip on the outside portion of that spacer becomes largely irrelevant, because what lip is remaining is going to be trapped inside of that radius that's cut into the back side of the rotor carrier and the face of the wheel. It's trapped there. It's not going to go anywhere. But you can see how much I took off of it just by me holding this unmodified spacer up there and then moving it, and then dropping it out of the way. Yeah, I'm dropping everything tonight. So now we got our drive unit for our speedometer. Well, the drive unit also acts as the wheel spacer on the left side of the wheel. So we got to have it there. It's essential. So I took that, popped that in the seal, and then I marked out where the drive tab for that speedometer unit needed to be in the rotor to where I could cut a notch in it. Now, the reason I cut this notch a little bit deeper than what was necessary for that drive tab is I wanted to be able to have the option to where later on down the road, if I have to replace this drive unit, a lot of times what I find on these, that drive tab is a little taller than the OEM ones are. And occasionally I'll have to bend one inboard just a little bit. Didn't want to have to do that, so I just made my notch a little bit taller. Besides, after this thing collects a couple of thousand miles worth of road funk and brake dust, ain't nobody ever going to see that. But yeah, there we go. We got a full late model brake swap onto a 1988 model Terraglide. Now gang, I love you, and I love spending time with you. But what you see here on the video, it's not truly indicative of the amount of time that I've got tied up in here. Right now, I'm going on, if we take out the time where I had a squirrel moment and I had a slight distraction by having to fix the electrical boogaboo and stuff like that I found once I pulled the speedometer out of this thing, I've got probably a solid 10 hours worth of work into this bike right up to this point right now. Now granted, that's doing the machine work on the axle spacers, that's doing the math on it and mocking it up and figuring it all out, but that's also building the forks, swapping the lower legs over, full rebuild on the forks. Also, that was with me fixing my anti-dive on this bike because it wasn't functional for a while. The ground wire, the terminal on it had fallen off. But I'm not trying to discourage you from doing updates like this. The thing is, it's like I've told you guys since day one whenever I bought Destiny, okay? My goal with this bike is to keep this bike as original appearing as possible. Notice I said appearing there. I'd always planned on doing suspension upgrades, brake upgrades, engine upgrades, and a lot of these upgrades are still coming. Well, let's just say that Santa brought me a big old box of parts for Christmas. The goal here has always been to keep this bike looking as original as possible. And unless you're a hardcore purist or somebody that just happened to work on the assembly line for the motor company back in 1988, 99.9% of people that walk up to this bike, they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, yeah, clean old bike. They're never going to pick up on it. I don't have this down on the ground and I don't have it running yet. And truthfully, I'm kind of tired. Been a long damn day. What I'm going to do, I'm going to button up a couple things. I'm going to pet the cats, make sure they got water, and then I'm going to go home, take a shower, I'm going to sleep for about 6 hours because I got to be back here at 9 o'clock. Well, 9 o'clock later today. How about that? We didn't get it done, but we're well on the way. And especially after finding one of the top out springs missing from the forks on this thing, and also the sad state of what little fork oil was in there, because according to the book, this thing's supposed to have 10.5 ounces per leg. And I can tell you right now, I did not have 21 ounces of old nasty ass fork oil in my drain pan whenever I opened these forks up. It was a hell of a lot less than that. So no telling how long they've been running low. Yeah, it's late. I'm tired. Been a long day. Been a good day. We've learned a lot. And I truly hope that this will help some of you guys out there that have pondered or wondered or have absolutely cussed just how horrible your earlier generation Harley touring model brakes truly are. Now, the thing is, I'm a little bit on the spoiled side because I can directly compare what this bike had versus what the newer bikes have, pretty much like that. All I've got to do is just grab a bike here in the shop and take a test ride on it. But I do truly hope that this will help some of you guys understand what's involved in this and understand the fact that you do not have to spend yourself blind on $800, $1,000, $1,200 worth of Oleans or Legend suspension, anything like that, to get good usable suspension out of an otherwise elder statesman type of motorcycle. Okay, you can make it better, you can tune it, you can adjust it, you can get it to do what you want it to do, and you can get it to stop doing what you absolutely dread. As far as the brakes go, hey, who doesn't want better brakes? All right, I've not had a chance to ride this yet with the brake conversion on there, but trust me, anything's bound to be an improvement upon what the stock stuff was. Because let's be honest here, folks, on the older touring models like this, and then Road Kings, yada yada, whatever, pretty much anything other than a Sportster, you know, once you get into the heavier class bikes that's got the single piston front calipers, the brakes were pretty miserable on them. I mean, they did a real good job of lighting up the brake light, and that was really about the only thing that they excelled at. I got a lot of time invested in this thing up to this point right here, right now, but I don't want to buffalo you guys. I will have a full technical drawing with dimensions and specs on the axle mods that I had to do to make this work, because the axle, the sleeve that I showed you on the axle and modifying those centering spacers for the brake rotors, those are the only two things that require any kind of fabrication work on this. The rest of this is 100% a straight up bolt on. Guys, you can keep them on the road. You can keep them running. You can make them better. And I'll tell you one thing. If it were me, and if it were me spending the money, I would absolutely put money into an older bike rather than signing my life away on a payment with an interest rate and a dink on my credit score buying a new motorcycle. I'm probably going to get a little bit philosophical here and let's just say somewhat opinionated. But the newer bikes, especially the newer bikes from the motor company, they don't have the soul the old bikes used to have. You're on a rolling infotainment system. The bike has more wiring on it than most cars from 20 years ago had. Not by much, but there's a good possibility there. You got a lot more nanny tech in these bikes. You've got anti-lock brakes. You've got traction control. You've got ride modes. You've got infotainment. You've got this and blah, 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 blah. And you know what? If that's your thing, props to you, man. I ain't going to yuck your yum. But to me, a motorcycle is a machine, and it's meant to be a visceral experience of something that you choose to utilize as a method of transportation. It shouldn't be a technological hub. It shouldn't read your text messages for you. It shouldn't show you emails when you receive them. What it should do is touch the soul. And this bike does a damn good job of that for me. So it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Is it going to get better? Oh, hell yeah, it is. Do I regret anything about this? No, not in a million damn years. I love you, gang. I'm going to sign off on this one, but keep in mind, I'll have a full breakdown of parts on this thing and also those drawings that I was telling you about for the spacers that you got to fabricate for the axle to be able to use that conversion axle to work with the older speedometer, the old cable drive speedometers. Going to have that over on the Patreon for all you guys over there. They get first crack at it because you know what? They've had my back since day one, and I appreciate the hell out of every single one of those guys and gals over there. Y'all are some awesome damn people. Thank you for sticking it out with us. And, oh yeah, by the way, if you made it this damn far in the video, I just want to let you know. From me, the wife unit, Petty Officer Squid Boy, everybody at JTMJ. I hope you guys have a blessed and Merry Christmas. I hope you spend it with your loved ones. I hope you get a chance to make those memories. I hope you get a chance to add to that photo album. At the end of the day, let's take time to remember what the holiday's about. Take time to remember who the holiday is about. It's for the man upstairs. It's for the son that he brought to this planet to show us a better way. And for all you parents out there, it's about spending time with your kids. Watching them just tear into a damn box and make a blizzard of wrapping paper and string, and seeing them freak out whenever they get the newest Lego set that they never thought they'd have. Booster says goodnight, y'all. Remember, guys, I love you. I'll catch you on the flip side.
Force will be with you, always.